Instagram tells me. Let me start with this lovely slide. All right. Here is the topic for the Instagram Live on my The Pleasure Is All Yours Instagram Live channel. As you can see, I've got Denise Wiesner is going to be joining me. And I'm going to get her on the line now. Hi, Denise. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Dr. Rachel.
Yeah. As I was just starting to explain that the topic is really how can Eastern medicine, and I know you also do a lot specifically with Chinese medicine, but we also have overlap with chakras and energy and that and Ayurvedic, all sorts of stuff. But that's the topic today. First, I just want to say to everybody, I first heard about Denise because of her book, Conceiving with Love, and because we were working with the same editor and publisher. Let's just start hearing a little bit. Tell us a little bit about how this book of yours is unlike any other.
First of all, I'm really happy to be here. I work with a lot of couples that are trying to conceive, and actually single women who are trying to freeze eggs as well. But one of the problems that I was seeing is that people were having intimacy issues and sexual issues, and it wasn't being addressed in fertility. Like they would go to their doctor and try to tell the doctor, like, the reason why we're not making a baby is because my partner's having a difficult time ejaculating in me. And so, but like, they were like, yeah, just do an IVF. So nobody gave them any kind of practical solutions. And then I started hearing about like baby making sex and just all these problems. And I thought, gosh, we need to address this. We need to talk about this topic. And so I decided that there was like nothing out there. So I created a book.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that we both are really people who want to talk about what is not being spoken about with regard to the body and intimacy and sex. And for you, I don't do a lot with fertility and conception, but I know you do. But it still falls in that category of things in which people keep it secret. And then there can be so much shame or confusion when there aren't these broader conversations.
Yeah, I mean,
things that are essential to being human.
Right. I mean, I just had a patient yesterday who was like flipping through my course that I have. And she's like, oh, I went through your anatomy and I was an anatomy and physiology, sexual anatomy and physiology. And she said, I didn't know that where things were all located. And I didn't even know about arousal and desire. It's like, yeah, we're not taught that. So, it was just amazing. She's trying to have a baby, and she's married and she didn't know. Yeah. So it's time we talk about it and educate women, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so this is kind of more what you've been this is your baby, your project recently, but when did you first start getting into Chinese medicine, and decide to become an acupuncturist?
That was a long time ago. I've been in practice for 27 years. Wow. And so I became a practitioner of Chinese medicine because I was an exercise physiologist and I was having my own digestive problems. And I saw regular Western medicine and they just were like, yeah, take some, Metamucil or whatever they told me to take. And I was like, much more complicated than that. And I started seeing an acupuncturist. And at the time, it was just this deep dive into body, mind, spirit that no one had taken me on. I went to a workshop and on my family of origin, and it was just a deep dive into my own digestive function and my own emotions and body, and that's what led me into becoming a Chinese medicine practitioner. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. One of my best friends here is also an acupuncturist, and I know that it made a difference for me with regard to sleep. That's one of the reasons I went. And it's definitely, I'm a better sleeper now.
Yeah. It's really good for a lot of things like sleep and, digestion. It really just kind of looks at the whole body, mind, spirit, which I really love about it. Yeah.
Well, and when we dive into just issues around intimacy, do you feel like, what are some of the ways in which you feel like people aren't really looking at more of Eastern medicine as something that can help enhance, connection to self and then intimacy with others and their lovers?
I think why people aren't looking into intimacy around baby making, for sure, it's goal oriented. They want to have a baby and they're not really like, it's like so much like I want to chase the carrot that I'm not really caring about how I will get there, so it's not, they forget about their relationship. And I think in terms of intimacy, I think it takes putting energy into that. I think we're not brought up with that. I don't think we're brought up with that. And this idea that we have to put in energy to keep a relationship alive. I think it's much more like once you have a relationship, you're like, yeah, I'm married. It's all good, right? I would just,
let yourself go. But you always
yeah,
hear about
like
that.
do whatever, like, yeah, like do whatever. And I was just talking about to a friend about this, about just the energy that it takes to keep things alive, to keep things magical, right? Within yourself and with your relationship. And,
yeah, I heard, I don't know if you're familiar with Alex Katahakis, a sex therapist in LA.
mm-hmm.
I did a training with her, and I remember she brought up, I think that's who I heard this phrase of sweatpants sex, which is basically like, you're not even gonna, like, you're gonna keep your sweatshirt on even, because you know what, putting on lingerie, no, forget about it. You're just happy that you're actually both deciding to have sex. So if it's sweatpants sex, hey, it's better than nothing.
Right. And sweatpants sex, I'm sure in the pandemic was a big thing, right?
Oh.
I went to buy clothes, and it was like, God, all the pants for women were sweatpants related recently.
Yeah, the loungewear.
The loungewear, right? Yeah, I think it's just in so many ways that we need to attend to ourselves so we feel good, right? It's not just about the partner. It's about how we feel in our own bodies and how we take care of ourselves. Yeah. And that sort of intimacy with self, and then intimacy with a partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and, I talk about, I have a section, you were able to read an advanced version of my book, and yeah. I have a section where I talk about the chakra system and subtle body energy, and also about Ayurvedic medicine. And I don't go into it in depth because those are such huge, systems in and of themselves. But as helping with being bodyful, because they're to connect to our subtle body energy is a huge kind of portal into inner wisdom. And not only inner wisdom, but when we're in an environment with other people.
It's so true. And I have to tell you a really funny story. So I did this chakra merging video with a couple, and it was doing exactly like showing them like how to do couples chakra merging and talking through, and I videotaped it, or taped it, or filmed it, I should say. Anyway, I had to practice, and I was like, oh, I need a couple to practice with. And so I got my 19-year-old son and his girlfriend. And I thought, we're not naked here. The people have clothes on. It's okay.
We're all adults.
Yeah, they're adults, and also they're not naked. And this isn't, it's an interesting thing. We're touching on this intimacy, sexuality. Like, what is intimacy? It's not always sexuality. It's really that deep connection. You're talking about the subtle energy bodies. Like, so so they had clothes on, and I'm like talking them through this energy, and it was just about having them go through the chakras and merge their energies together. And I thought, I wish someone had taught me this when I was their age, because it's about the subtle energy, and it's not, and the connection. And it was really cute because my son's girlfriend was like, oh, this is great. Like, I love this. Like, yes, because this is about connecting energy to somebody else's energy in a loving way that you love. Right? Mm-hmm. What's better than that? It's almost, it's euphoric. It increases oxytocin, the cuddle hormone. Mm-hmm. But it's just that idea that I think we don't do that, and we're not taught that. And so we don't know how to do that subtle energy thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that even there can be a lot of people maybe listening right now, connect to my chakras or subtle body energy, and how can I get my partner to do that so that we can actually have, whether it be emotional intimacy or physical intimacy. So I think it might be confusing to people. Like, I learned about chakras through my yoga teacher training. And I was skeptical at first because I had also come from a much more medical model in my graduate program. And I, as soon as I started learning more about chakras, doing chakra readings and chakra balancing, and listening to it in my own self, which is really about connecting to your body in a deeper way and really listening to it, noticing patterns. And with the chakra system, also really knowing about sort of past traumas and family of origin stuff, and how it can live in your body. It can block you, how certain parts of your body can be blocked, certain parts can be excessive. So for me, I feel really lucky that I learned about that. But I think for the average person, they probably are like, chakra, like what the heck is that? Or they maybe
Yeah,
think
what
I'm
is that?
talking about Shaka Khan, who's also a wonderful singer, but that's different.
Yeah, it's true. I think we're not taught that. So I think you in your book did it so beautifully, and I have one in my mind. We both just like sort of was like, yeah, let's explain what these energy centers are. And they're in Ayurvedic medicine, but they're also in Chinese medicine. I mean, it's kind of like pretty basic. Like you have energy, below your belly button, like you have energy at the root chakra. I go through them, and I know you go through them, and it's like to teach people about what they are. They're not really magical. You feel like, some people will say like, yeah, I feel kind of blocked below my belly button, right? I don't feel any energy there. Or some people are really disconnected from their intuition, like their third eye. Yeah. And we just pointed out like your third eye is your intuition. It's like, oh, right. And so I think when people start to pay attention to their bodies and get in their bodies, even, through a yoga class or, it could be many different ways, they start to go inward through acupuncture, through guided working with a healer. You start like accessing different parts of your body. You start getting in touch with these energy centers. Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, do people come in, like, will a guy come in and say, I would like acupuncture to help with like erectile dysfunction, for example?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I treat erectile dysfunction.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we'll do acupuncture, herbs. And then I think it's really important to sort of go into a little more of like what's going on, because, there can be something physical going on where they're having erectile dysfunction, or in many of my patients' cases, it's psychogenic. There's something going on. It's like the wife wants to have sex and he can't perform on time. It's a type of erectile dysfunction, right? Or it's been going on forever because the guy is like really in his head and can't like drop into his body, and is so worried about not having an erection he doesn't have an erection. It's complicated, intimacy, sexuality, it's all complicated. So yes, people do come in for ED, men.
Yeah. And then depending on where depending on the herbs you give and also where you put the needles, that can help stimulate blood flow.
Yeah, I mean, it can help stimulate blood flow. I think it's just not enough to just like, here's some needles and here's some herbs. I think it's important as a practitioner to really understand what's going on for the guy. So like I had a guy who kind of had ED, and then he had difficult time ejaculating in his partner, and he had always had difficult time ejaculating in all his partners when it was time for baby, across the board. And then in baby making, it's really hard because if you don't ejaculate in your partner, can't make a baby.
Makes it a little bit challenging, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's like nobody explained to him like maybe he needed to change his masturbatory style. There were some fixes for this. He just didn't know where to go, so they just went to IVF right straight out the gate because they weren't really taught anything else. And no one actually suggested some other kinds of fixes for it. Or that this happens when men spend so much time trying not to ejaculate in their partner for prevention of pregnancy, then all of a sudden you ask them to ejaculate in their partner. It's like, that's not what they've been trained to do. Yeah. So it's complicated. So
the body gets confused too. It's not just in our mind, but like the body has its set patterns, and reactive patterns and associations too. And so that's where I think, a lot of I know that we both really overlap a lot in wanting to help people bring in the body, not only through Eastern medicine, but just to pay attention in their day-to-day lives, as a source of, wisdom, as a source of self-regulation. And how can that not then help with, with intimacy, the more that we're connected to ourselves, or in that deep inner knowing, then we're going to be able to share that with somebody else. I mean, there's that vulnerability piece to get from knowing it within energetically or emotionally, but then of course to express it. But although I am doing actually another Instagram live in a couple of weeks specifically on communication for couples when it comes to sexual health, but for our purposes, I think it'd be great for people to just expand and start to look into whether the ways acupuncture, Ayurvedic medicine, awareness of their chakras and their energy can and really connect them more to self, and maybe then get their partner to also learn about it too. So it can be a journey together.
Yeah, I think that's totally great. And I do think communication, I think it's a very scary thing for a lot of women and for men, sometimes men, both parties, to ask for what they want. Sometimes people don't even know what they want. So this investigation together of really exploring, like to say, hey, for tonight, let's just put on this chakra video and let's just have fun and see where it takes us. To engage in some things that are maybe out of the comfort zone together is a really fun way to change things up, if you will.
Yeah. And And with regard to thinking about Ayurvedic medicine, I mean, do you consult at all on that in your practice, or mainly in your book?
I do a little bit of Ayurvedic medicine in my book, but there's such a overlap between Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese medicine. They're probably originally from the same source, although Ayurvedic has different types of herbs, but they actually, it's Asian medicine. So it overlaps. So I talk about it in my book, and I probably touch on it a little bit in my practice with people, but there's such a strong root in Chinese medicine in terms of the amount of information available for patients, for practitioners, that I sort of bent toward traditional Chinese medicine more than I do Ayurvedic. But I practice yoga, so it's in me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that was something that was interesting to me, that I had done a lot of yoga and then learned about Ayurvedic medicine, later. And then to learn at how interconnected that they are, and how the sequence, like a really well-crafted sequence, really, it takes you through all of kind of your energy centers in your body. And I mean, talk about the ultimate foreplay, and also whether it be foreplay with somebody else, but also just foreplay to get your body sort of revved up, and to help with libido and attraction. I mean, it's like people who practice yoga, and especially when there's a lot of focus at like the second chakra, at your pelvic floor and hips, and it's such a strong energetic center that so many people can be like ashamed of, or don't, certainly don't talk about. Like I heard this one training program was done for women, in which they were trying to help women actually know their body parts. And one woman said she thought that the word clitoris, she thought it was the name of a planet. She didn't know that she actually like had a clitoris. So when I think about just how, my whole point is that Ayurvedic medicine connecting also with yoga, being the sister science to yoga, and how just when we get in our body, move our bodies, and really have more of that blood flow and connection. I mean, how can it not be, especially when you do it with your lover, such a great way to really create emotional intimacy, and then maybe after you're off the mat, some physical intimacy.
Totally. I mean, when I filmed this video that I have, with this couple's video, it was like getting steamy in the room, because the energy, it just took over. We were all like, whoo, whoo, because you could feel their connection, and also their heart was opening. It wasn't just their loins, it was the connection between their heart and their loins. And in Chinese medicine, there is actually a channel that connects the heart to the reproductive organs. And so this idea, and so like even like the heart energy in Chinese medicine connects to the tongue. So like kissing, and that drops down to and you can feel it when you kiss somebody. It like drops right down. Or the eye gazing is the liver channel in Chinese medicine, and the liver channel also encircles the genitals. So this idea of eye gazing, opening up the liver energy in Chinese medicine, the 5 element or the wood energy, can also have an effect. And it's also connected to the partner, right? It's the seeing your partner. Yeah.
Wow. My mind is kind of blown right now. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
The ways, so eye gazing can then, so that stimulates like an area, like what, some chi?
The eye gazing stimulates the wood element in Chinese medicine. Wood element opens up the eyes. Wood is also the mother of the heart energies, or the fire energies. So you need a lot of wood. You need some wood to make a fire. So I actually have this lover's wheel, which we said we were going to talk about at some point, but yes. This lover's wheel that looks at the 5 elements and like what type of lover you are. So for example, the wood element is also about passion. It's the visionary, because it opens to the eyes. So what do you have? What's your vision? You might have a fantasy vision that you have that you want to play out, and that would be the wood energy. The fire is all about the love and the heart space. But like earth element, when it's in balance, is great. You're centered, you're earth mama, you're taking care of others. But when it's out of balance as a lover, you might be so concerned with pleasing your partner, you forget about your own needs. And so I gave some tools for women and men to connect into what kind of lover they are, just so that they can begin this conversation that we've talked about that's so tricky to talk about. Like, how do you begin to talk about, well, I really like this, or I'd like to experiment with this, or dressing up might be fun. Let's role play. My passion is I want to take a ropes class together. I mean, it's like, how do you say that? So this gives you like a framework of how to communicate maybe what kind of lover you are, where you need some help. Yeah.
I think that sounds so intriguing, and I mean, what a great way to add that, weave that in to your self-awareness of, yeah, like what your needs are and wants, and then when you know that about the other person too, that increased understanding. Um, that is intimacy also, to like really understand yourself and understand the other person, their tendencies and interests, and is that in the book?
Yes, the 5 element lovers wheel's in the book. Yeah, with some visuals. Yeah.
I'm like, I wonder which one I am. I'm gonna have to go dive into
And
the
you
book
and you
more.
might be like you might be in different times, you know, you might resonate with different things, right? Like different elements. You can be more than one as well. Yeah. So, but you know, sometimes I know people are, you know, sometimes people are into pleasing others, not pleasing themselves, earth imbalance, or people have an imbalance. They're very frustrated because wood energy, we're talking about wood a lot today for some reason, is about, can be when it's not flowing, when your energy is not flowing, it gets stuck. And then we get pent up, you know, like sighing and frustrated and like sexually frustrated. And it's like, you know, it's that energy of being wound up. So when that's not balanced, you get that, right? So they're all
Yeah.
very interesting, very, very full and rich.
Wow. I'm trying to hold back from my like seventh grade self that wants to make a joke about wood, like getting
I
hard
did.
and wood
I
energy,
did.
but that's inappropriate.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I think I put it in my book too, right? It's like they call
Yeah,
it a woody. It's like, yeah. Okay, I
that's
made it for
maybe
you.
that's where it all comes from.
Wood element. Yeah, it's only so simple. It's like wood, right? It's like it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that this is just like kind of a great teaser for people to then explore your book. The full, let's say the full title.
It's called Conceiving with Love is the full title, a whole body approach to creating intimacy, reigniting passion, and I think increasing fertility.
Yeah.
Ah, it's a big mouthful.
Well, I knew
Um,
because I knew the title, but then the subtitle. I
yeah,
know
but
my subtitle is long.
it's you know, it's funny as I'm rereading it, I'm rereading it, I'm like, wow, you know, this isn't just for fertility patients. Like anyone could benefit from this book. All couples could benefit from this book, and individuals, because I talk about orgasm and foreplay and how to, you know, get yourself healthy with Chinese medicine. So it's not just about fertility, although the bent is for fertility. Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, just like you were saying with regard to if there's pressure and there's this sort of outcome driven focus on conception, how that really, you know, kind of ruins the mood, or can. I mean, it's really because, you know, what I talk about with regard to bodyfulness in my book is just the ways in which, yeah, the more self-conscious we are, or the, you know, the more we're in our heads, how can we then engage in something that's really meant to be, you know, energetic and primal and of the senses and our sensory self. So I can see where, yeah, if you're just thinking about like the bottom line of, you know, of getting that sperm in there and planting that egg, I mean, that sort of pressure, yeah, I mean, why would anybody like really be, you know,
Into that.
excited to,
Yeah, I love that bodyfulness. That's so great.
yeah, you know, I think it's a word, I say it a lot, because I think it really does evoke an idea of being more fully embodied. And as much as I think mindfulness is very helpful, it's limited. It's really is, and we can have mindfulness on the body, but bodyfulness really takes it to that next step, which is
Right.
what do we do with the mindfulness within, you know, how do we self-regulate? How do we practice, you know, discharge or containment, or, and then also like really the third layer is about how do we then embrace our right to joy and pleasure in our body without guilt, without shame, because that's part of the bodyfulness element that really goes beyond, I think, some of the other somatic or trauma based practices that certainly do want people to feel joy and pleasure in their body, but it's really so much is focused just on the primary step of like feeling safe in your body, which is, you know, that's huge, that's important. We
Huge.
can't feel joy and pleasure unless we do feel safe. So I feel grateful for all the pioneers in somatic psychology who have really focused on establishing or reestablishing safety in the body. But bodyfulness sort of takes it to that next level of like, then also to really engage and enjoy and feel bliss, and that it's our right. Like we shouldn't feel guilty or bad for doing that, or
Yeah.
lavish, that it actually helps with resilience and
Yeah.
connection to others. So
Totally. And you know what I
Yeah.
think it's also important is that one of the ways to heal trauma and to heal these uncomfortable feelings is to put pleasure in, right?
It's
It's
healing.
just
It's absolutely healing.
it's really what the healing force is pleasure and love.
Mm-hmm.
And that displaces the sort of other stuff. I mean, not to downgrade it. So, you know, trauma is trauma, and that's,
Yeah.
you know, hard, especially if it's body trauma.
Yeah.
It's hard, but I think that the antidote is love and pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
and they're together.
Yeah.